Hey, so I wanted to come in and talk about The Children Act by Ian McEwan. I only finished this a couple of hours ago, but I read it as part of the reading rush. I've read it quite quickly. I think I read it in three sittings. So it's probably a book you can read in a day. It's only about 210 pages. This was my first Ian McEwan, and this book is about this lady called Fiona, and she's like a high court judge, and she's 59, I think, and she's basically at the tippity top of her career. And it's in London, so she's very much like part of this like upper echelon part of society now that she's like earned her way into, and she deals with various cases. So you get a glimpse into all these cases. This big case comes up at this like crisis point in her life. So her husband is like, "I want to have sex with you," and then she's like, well, she doesn't really say anything, but he's like, "Why won't you have sex with me?" And she just doesn't answer. She's like, ugh. So I guess she's a bit of a prude, but it's not much that she's a prude. She doesn't come off like that because the novel focuses on her perspective mostly. It's like close third person with her, and you get the sense that she's not really a prude. It's more that she's just at the time where this is going on, where she's got this awful court case she's dealing with, that she's just emotionally guarded. You follow this case she gets where this boy he's got leukemia and he's 17, nearly turning 18. So technically he's not classed as an adult who can make his own decisions, and the parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're like, he needs a blood transfusion to survive. And then the case gets sent to the Supreme Court to be like, are we gonna transfuse this boy blood he needs to live against him and his family's wishes? Because the Children Act is like the name of this like law decree where, the welfare of the child is what's most important. But I thought the book was about so much more than just law. It really amazed me that Ian McEwan, I'm not from a lawyer background. I've never been in a court, thankfully. But it amazed me how vivid it was and how much of like the legal jargon he knew. So I was like, did Ian McEwan like sit in on court cases like making notes? At the end, he says he had help from some other lawyer who I guess like proofread the book and then was saying, no, it's more this, 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 this. So like correcting it. So it was very, very realistic, I thought, the legal casing. And I just thought the writing was really, really good. The writing was like clever, intelligent, sensual, and it was never overwritten. And it just towed the line between being action focused but descriptive and immersive at the same time. And it's my first Ian McEwan, so yes, I very much liked it. While I was reading this, I was thinking about the difference between long novels and short novels and how they work differently, and how in a long novel, obviously, a long novel is kind of more immersive. And I think in a shorter novel, the mystery around the novel where you're not sure how it's going to unfold, even if it's plot focused or not, there's always like this kind of like mystery in a story that you want to read on and find out about, I think, if it's a decent story. And I think in a short novel the mystery is always like quite thinly veiled, and you're like, I'm near it, where is it, and you're grappling with it. And then when the novelist finally draws back the curtain, you're either like, oh, it wasn't that great, or you're like, yes. And in this novel I was like, yes, you did it, Ian. So yeah, and then I think in longer novels it's more like you're in like a corridor of veils, so you're going like from that one to that one to that one, and then it all comes together if the novelist can write longer novels well. So yeah, it made me consider how short books and longer books work differently. Fiona is also, she doesn't have children, and it's made out not that she like decided not to have children, but it's more that she was so career driven that she kind of kept putting it on the back burner, and now she's too old to really have them. But her husband is like a lecturer on maybe like ancient Greek books, something like that. Because at one point he's writing a Virgil introduction book that he wants to be, published everywhere. So I guess that he's a Greek classics lecturer, something like that. But the husband sounded like a fit lecturer. Like he's like an older man, but he sounded like pretty sexy. So I enjoyed that, and I thought he managed to convey the tensions between them as a couple just so well and so believably, and it made me just enjoy like what reading can do, because you can get inside the characters' heads. You get to see all the tension, and you get to see the narrator is kind of, he's just able to give you a glimpse of what maybe her husband Jack is thinking, or what he's meaning to do when he like makes her a cup of coffee, and then it's mainly focused on her perspective. So then the way she reacts she keeps like second guessing her reactions, and it was such a privilege to be able to read that, because I think they've made a film of this, but I think if you watch the film, I don't see how they could communicate that. I mean, they could communicate it, but I don't think they could ever communicate it as succinctly as it is done in this book, for example. So this is like early on in the book. The click of Jack's tumbler against the glass table returned her to the room and his question. He was looking at her steadily. Even if she'd known how to frame a confession, she was in no mood for one, or any display of weakness. She had work to do. The conclusion to her judgment to proofread, with the angels waiting. Her state of mind was not the issue. The problem was the choice her husband was making, the pressure he was now applying. She was suddenly angry again. For the last time, Jack, are you seeing her? I'll take your silence as a yes. But he too was roused, out of his chair, walking away from her to the piano, where he paused, one hand resting on the raised lid, gathering his patience before he turned. In that moment the silence between them expanded. The rain had ceased. The oak trees in the walks were stilled. I thought I'd made myself clear. I'm trying to be open with you. I saw her for lunch. Nothing's happened. I wanted to talk to you first. I wanted. Well, you have, and you've had your answer. So what now? Now you tell me what's happened to you. When was this lunch? Where? Last week. At work. It was nothing. The sort of nothing that leads to an affair. He remained at the far end of the room. There it is, he said. His tone was flat, a reasonable man tested to exhaustion. Amazing the theatrics he thought he could get away with. In her time on circuit, ageing and illiterate recidivists, some with very few teeth, had come before her and performed better, thinking aloud from the dock. I thought Ian McEwan communicated the intimacies and frustrations of their relationship just so well. So she's got all the drama between her and her husband going on, and then she gets this case with the boy, and the whole time while she has to decide whether he's going to have the blood transfusion or not. So she investigates and she goes to see him, and I just thought it was such good writing the way it was done, and I got the sense that the boy needing the transfusion was kind of like a symbol for like the novel form and the sense of writing into like a novel tradition and the phenomenon that is like a masterpiece of art, that it has to keep surviving. And the blood transfusion was like the center, like the question and the mystery behind the book, the phenomenon of, you know, whether this would save the boy or kill the boy, and whether it would like ruin everyone's lives on this decision. And I thought it was done so well. I like that Ian McEwan lets you dangle a little bit. He lets you dangle just enough. The whole time I was thinking, I was like, give the boy the transfusion, give it to him. I was like, do it against his wishes, because even though he's 17, he's probably got so many lives that he can lead that he should have it. And then when she makes her decision, I was like, I just felt so involved in the whole thing. The only problem I had with it is that with novels like this that are written about like terminal illness, a lot of the times it can become cancer pornish, and it becomes a like, oh, let's build this illness up to be a huge philosophical problem, and it's such a good depiction of what life is really like for everyone. And I thought that Ian McEwan managed to avoid indulging into that aspect. The only thing I think he did indulge in a little bit more than he needed to was the depiction of the boy. In the boy's dialogue, he does seem young, and it's very realistic. So the dialogue in the book is very good as well. But the way the woman, when she goes to see him in his hospital bed, she's like, he's so beautiful. He's like Keats on his deathbed, or like Percy Bysshe Shelley, and he's compared to like these romantic poets because the boy likes writing poetry. So there's a bit of his poetry in there too, and his poetry isn't that great, really. But at one point she says, you could be like a poetic genius or something, she says. And I was like, I wouldn't go that far. But he was kind of dying, so I don't judge her too much for telling him he's a genius. But I thought, I mean, if he's got leukemia and he's pretty much on his deathbed, he probably isn't going to be looking beautiful and pallid like a pre-Raphaelite. I'm like, he's going to be looking fucking terrible. So I thought that was a bit too over-aestheticised. But apart from the way he was described as being really beautiful, so I thought the book had a lot to say about the law and how it rules everybody and how it treats religion. So for the most part, I thought it did a really good job of treating religion, and it wasn't bashing it too much. The general feel I got off the novel was that it was quite atheist, but I thought it was atheist in a kind of understanding way. What else? Everything apart from that, the book was like perfect. I think the book is like a small masterpiece, and the ending was just right as well. I thought something like, I'm not going to ruin the ending for anyone who hasn't read it yet, but I think if you've read it you'll know, and something does have to give. And I thought the way he did it was good, and the boy's agency was still valid. The ending validated the boy's agency, and it might not necessarily do that in the most humane way. It also manages to balance that with the choices you make in life are what matters, I guess. There was also quite a lot in it about classical music. I don't know anything about classical music, really. Like, I used to play the clarinet as a kid, but that's not really classical. I never got to a classical level. But in it, she plays the piano, so that's why in a little bit I read out, I think there's a piano in that. There's a bit where she plays in like the orchestra towards the end, and I thought the writing about the music was really, really good, because I don't know that much about classical music, but sometimes I've read books where people say, oh my god, this is about classical music and it's brilliant. Like the other year, I tried reading "Do Not Say We Have Nothing" by Madeline Tien, and I didn't think it was really that much about classical music. It was really boring. I DNF'd it. I thought the characterization was really bad, and that the story got really boring, so I gave up on that. But apparently, that was meant to be about classical music. But I thought, if you want to read about classical music, you're probably better off reading this than "Do Not Say We Have Nothing." But again, I DNF'd that, so who knows? If you haven't read Ian McEwan, I'd recommend this first, because I had a really great experience with it. And if you've read Ian McEwan, what do you think of this? Yeah, that's my thoughts on The Children Act. I'm still reading Bit of Fame, making fairly steady progress, and I'm really enjoying this. And next, as part of the reading rush, I'm onto Holes. So, yes. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Taste this, man.